Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at some access options, remote access options, and a little bit about VPNs. Okay, so one of the more common ways that we can remotely access the internet, and really what we're talking about is remotely accessing the internet or the company office from home or from some kind of remote site. One is DSL. Digital subscriber line. And this has been commonly used not just by teleworkers, but also branch offices. Replaced a lot of the frame relay and ATM that was out there. Providing much higher bandwidth at much reduced cost. So at home, you get a DSL modem, splitter, some other things, but it's an always-on connection. All right, and usually this your connection is terminated somewhere along the way to the central office. It's something called a DSLAM, a DSL multiplexer. And you see these big boxes if you look around your neighborhood, if you have DSL in your area, which most people do. You'll see these DSLAMs located. They're kind of inconspicuous devices and meant to be that way. Okay, similar to DSL, another option is cable. This is using the same connection that we use for our cable television. Typically over coax or at some places fiber optic. Again, it's an always-on connection similar to DSL. Usually higher bandwidth than what we find over DSL because cable can uses coax or even fiber, where your typical DSL connection is a copper cable, same copper cable that's used for your telephone connection. All right, at your end, you'll have the cable modem, which translates those digital signals into broadband frequencies. That's used for transmitting over the cable television network. At the other end, known as the head end, you have something called a CMTS, Cable Modem Termination System. So this is what receives that digital cable modem signals on the cable network and provides the internet service to to subscribers. Wireless access. Okay, of course we have Wi-Fi in the home, but we can also use wireless to actually provide our access to the internet. Many cities have set up a municipal wireless network for free. I actually lived in a city that had that capability. It wasn't always the best, but it was always available. And when I say not the best, it was free, but not always the fastest bandwidth. There's also WiMAX, which is becoming more popular for places that don't have access to cable or DSL to access the internet. WiMAX is a technology similar to how we use cell towers, that you'll have a WiMAX router, modem, hotspot, whatever you want to call it, that then connects to a Wi-Fi tower. And then these Wi-Fi towers are either, sometimes they are connected wired to the backbone, or other times they have to send the signal to another tower that is connected via a wired connection to their backbone service. Cellular service, another service. This is a wireless technology that a lot of, I've had to use at times when I don't have any other option to connect to the internet. I'll connect using my 4G service or LTE service to a tower. There's also those services now that you can, for home, that you can actually connect via 3G, 4G, and ultimately 5G to a provider. So this is another option, especially for people that don't have very good cable or DSL options at home, that the cellular service is definitely another option. VSAT, so this is using satellite communications, which isn't always the fastest. There's usually some latency because of obviously the distance. Using a geosynchronous satellite, which is about just over 22,000 miles above. Geosynchronous meaning it follows the orbit of the Earth. So your dish can continuously point at the same spot in space and to send and receive signals from the satellite. Okay, with all of this, there's security risks, especially when you're remotely connecting, whether it's cable, DSL, satellite, or especially if you're, using municipal Wi-Fi, or you're in a getting coffee someplace or wherever you might be. So VPNs, virtual private networks, are a way to secure your information going from you to, let's say, the company office, wherever you might be. So I do some work on the side for Cisco and others, and when I'm communicating with them, it's always over a VPN connection to one of the head office sites that then I can connect to. So VPNs are typically are encrypted connections. They don't have to be, but that's typically why we want to encrypt it. Want a VPN is so we can encrypt it. Tunnels are created using one of many technologies or protocols, including IPsec. So VPNs, so they secure data by encapsulating the data, encrypting the data, or both. So usually both. So what we can actually see here is we have the original IP packet here that gets some, in this case here, we're using IPsec. I won't go into IPsec here, but it's basically this packet here with some, which is encrypted, and then some authentication information is then encapsulated in yet another IP packet. So the encapsulation that's what we call tunneling. That's whenever you encapsulate an IP packet inside another IP packet. There's variations of this with layer 2 as well. But when we're taking in this case here, we're talking strictly IP, taking an IP packet, just encapsulating another IP packet. That's known as tunneling. And it's just transparent to the network that there's an IP packet inside that IP packet. It just looks at the outer IP header. Encryption, that's, of course, putting the information to a format that is unreadable unless you have the key. And then being able to, then the other end being able to decrypt the encrypted packet. There are two types of VPNs. There's several types, but we're going to talk about site-to-site VPNs and remote access VPNs. Again, this is all just an introduction to various technologies. And of course, we could go into much more detail in all this stuff, especially VPNs. But what a site-to-site VPN is, just a VPN between two sites, exactly what it says. So in this case here, we have two routers. Let's take a look at this connection here, two routers, and all the VPN stuff is taken care of by the routers. Okay, so if I'm on this network over here, and I'm wanting to access, let's say, a server over here, all I have to do is access it normally. Whatever networking protocol I'm using, just access it as if it was on my network, or just going over any network. All the VPN tunneling and encryption is going to take place by this router here, and gets unencapsulated and decrypted by this router here. Okay, so Site-to-site VPNs, as it says here, allows access only to trusted employees. So it's an easy way to connect corporate and remote sites or branch offices remotely over either a public or even a private network, but making sure that everything is encrypted as if you're on your same private network. Okay, so this the gateways, the routers at the sites that actually handle all the tunneling and encryption, okay, and all the negotiation of the tunneling. I talked about some of the tunnel, how these tunnels can be done, but IPsec or IPsec with GRE are quite common. We'll introduce those a little bit more in later videos, and again, a lot of stuff we go into as far as VPNs, IPsec, GRE, etc. Okay, the other type of VPN I want to mention is remote access VPN, and this is typically how we access from home or from a hotel room or from a cafe. So here it looks like we're using the Cisco AnyConnect client, which is one that I use. Of course, using that password's not looking real good. Only 5 characters in that password. But anyway, remote access VPN provides remote users access to the internal network over that shared infrastructure over the internet. Okay, this is obviously what's used by mobile users, telecommuters, branch offices, wherever you're away from the main office, or like it says here, we can also use it for branch offices. Typically a branch office, if you're going to be having that connection a lot, usually you want to set up a site-to-site VPN. But if that connection isn't there or isn't available, then you can set up a remote access VPN. Okay, so that's just a little overview of some of the remote access options and VPNs.